us that they don't believe something can happen until it already has. It's not stupidity or weakness. It's just human nature.
How did you know?
Gerald Lane wrote a self-defeating Jeremiah about his employer, the UN, back in 2010. Caused a few ripples, sidelined your career. Thought you'd have parlayed those ripples into a self-righteous book.
No nose for profit. How did Israel know?
We intercepted a communique from an Indian general saying they were fighting the Rakshasa. Translation, zombies. Technically, undead.
Jürgen Warmbraum, high-ranking official in the Mossad, described as sober, efficient, not terribly imaginative. And yet, you build a wall because you read a communique that mentions the word zombie?
Well, when put like that, I'd be skeptical as well. In the 30s, Jews refused to believe they could be sent to concentration camps. In 72, we refused to fathom we'd be massacred in the Olympics. In the month before October 1973, we saw Arab troop movements, and we unanimously agreed they didn't pose a threat. Well, a month later, the Arab attack almost drove us into the sea. So we decided to make a change.
Change.
The 10th man. If 9 of us look at the same information and arrive at the exact same conclusion, it's the duty of the 10th man to disagree. No matter how improbable it may seem, the 10th man has to start digging with the assumption that the other 9 are wrong.
And you were that 10th man?
Precisely.
Now I'm going to do a little topic I've already talked about a little bit. It's called Dissent. So I want to... The previous clip is coming from World War Z, and there was a part in that movie I've always found to be the most interesting part of the movie. It's a great action movie, but it's got, like a lot of movies, these little snippets of truth in there. So the one thing that they're talking about here is being the 10th man, right? So I want you to pay attention to that snippet. If you need to go back to the beginning again, pay attention to that, being the 10th man. And what they're saying here, or what the Mossad agent is saying here, is that if everybody in a room agrees, then somebody needs to disagree. And when you disagree on something, then you take the counterpoint. You figure out what that thing is. Now, what's that going to lead you down to? Probably, I don't know. Who knows? It's going to be closer to the truth, though. You're going to get both pictures because you already agree with everybody else, right? So you guys are you're already saying the same things. You're all the birds in the same flock, all, yapping at each other, and you all fly in the same direction. You land in the same patch of grass, and you eat the same food, and you fly away, and you stay in your little flock, and everybody's nice and content. And every once in a while, one of the people in the flock drop off, but does the flock, ever really notice? Probably not. And this is done, for security, right? So why are you in your flock? Are you in your flock for security? Probably because you want to feel accepted. And it's easier to be accepted when you're around people that agree with each other, And there's been plenty of studies that even show that, I'd have to bring them up. But for instance, somebody goes in, they're kind of being studied. They put them into a room, and the room has, say, 3 other actors in there. And nobody says anything. They just say, hey, you need to go sit in the room and wait for your turn. And so the person goes in the room, and then the 3 other people are sitting there nice and quiet, and as soon as he starts talking, they all look at him like, don't say anything, right? And then, so that person's like, okay, well, this is a little uncomfortable. And then they'll do something like ring a buzzer. And when they ring the buzzer, everybody stands up. Well, except for the guy that has just been put in there because he's not acclimatized to what's going on. So he may stand up because he's trying to figure out what's going on. And the buzzer rings again, everybody sits down. And they're looking for, they got their hands on their lap or hands on the table, whatnot. The guy sits down. So even if the guy thinks it's nonsense, chances are that person will still follow along with the group. Now, what happens in this experiment is that one of the actors is called out, a new person is brought in, right? So, after the first person has been through a couple iterations of this, and then one of the actors is pulled out, called out, and a new person is brought in, and the same thing. Well, eventually, in not too long of a period of time, you have 4 brand new people in there that don't speak to each other. They look forward, and they all stand up when the buzzer goes off. They all sit down when the buzzer goes off, and nobody's giving them instructions. They're just following along. And even if somebody says, this is nonsense, why are you guys doing this? Nobody knows. Nobody knows why, because they say, well, this is how we've always done it, right? Even if it's only been a half hour. Another great example of this is that they did something where they painted lines on the floor with arrows in a mall. This was a mall. And people would follow the lines in an arrow. And funny enough, that there was one room where they put the line went into the room, and then it just went into a big circle around the room. And people were caught just walking around the circle because they were following the arrows. They didn't think about what they were doing. They just saw something that looked like a set of instructions, nothing more than a painted line on the floor with arrows indicating which way you should go, and people just follow along. Nobody told them this. They just did it naturally because they see other people doing it and they're like, oh, well, maybe this is the local rules here. And then what happens is you get this big room, the size of a large garage, with like 30 people walking in circles along a line. Why do they do this? Nobody really questions it. You don't see many people step out of line and say, what in the world am I doing here? Why did I come to this building to begin with? I certainly didn't come to this building to walk along a line and walk in a circle in a room. All right. But people do, because people don't think. They don't think critically. And this is the big part of being a dissenter, is that you need to think critically. Now, you may come to the conclusion that the people in your group probably are right. But in order to come to that conclusion, you need to take the stance that they are wrong and figure out what other truths out there are, right? So if you're put into a building or put into a room and everybody stands when the buzzer comes up and whatever, you don't have to stand. Nobody told you instructions. Nobody said when the buzzer goes off, stand up. They just put you in a room. And you're supposed to learn by groupthink? Well, no. Call BS on that. Think, you can sit down. You don't have to ever stand up. Nobody told you. And are you going to get punished for it? Probably not. Right? If you go into a building, to a mall or something, and there's a line on the ground with arrows on it, well, you can just ignore that and go to the store you're looking for, right? Somebody stops you in that same mall. That's a great sales tactic, is that somebody stops you in the mall and they start engaging you in conversation. You can walk past them. You're like, have a nice day. And it might be that girl that's supposed to sell everything. She's wearing her skin-tight clothes, has a great body. And she's like, hey. And, she might even get irritated because you're going to be the first guy that blows right past her. But, you didn't come to the store. Well, chances are you didn't go to the store because you didn't know what you wanted. You went to the store because you knew exactly what you wanted. Excuse me. Anyways, I want you to think about being the 10th man. In all situations. You hear a whole bunch of people telling you the same thing all the time, over and over and over again. Think about being the 10th man. Like, well, why is everybody saying the same thing? Maybe they're just repeating the things that other people have told them. Right? I'll try to find some of these studies and maybe link them on here. I'm not going to spend too much time on this video today. I wanted to highlight this snippet of the movie because I think it's very interesting. And it's at heart being a dissenter. Even if it's you forcing yourself to do it, force yourself to do it. And don't force yourself to do something to where you're seeking to find the other answer as wrong. Seek it to find the other answer is as true as the answers you think you already have. Right? Go in a divergent path and don't preconceive the information you're going to get. Take that information for what it is and make good decisions on that. I already made a decision on critical thinking. I've already made a decision or a video on Dissent. I've already made something very akin to this, it would be like the journalistic ethics video I did, right? To where you don't make preconceived notions. You're not out there to verify your bias. As a matter of fact, you're trying to verify why the bias may be wrong. This is only going to make you a stronger person. And it's also going to make you less susceptible to groupthink. It's going to make you less susceptible to just following along. And you know what? You won't be stuck in a room standing up and sitting down when a buzzer goes off. You won't be stuck in a room walking in a circle with arrows on the floor because that's what everybody else is doing. No, you'll be the one that is able to break away and see the world for what it really is. Nowadays, more than anything, this is probably one of the most important features that you can have, is this ability to think for yourself, think critically, and be a dissenter, and see things for what they really are. If you pay attention to the media, every news station, everybody's saying the same thing. Politicians are saying the same thing. It's all the same messaging. Tomorrow it'll be a different message, but it'll be everybody saying the same thing, repeating the same exact words. Why are they doing that? Well, a lot of people just repeat the same words too. When I talk about, I don't think I've talked about it on these videos, about narcissists. They're going to want to kind of brainwash you into an idea, and they're going to see the same thing and say the same thing and say the same thing until you start repeating it. And then once you start repeating it, you say the same thing, you say the same thing. And what does the narcissist do? They don't ever say it again, because now they have a plausible deniability that they've never said this. They've never introduced this idea. Well, they had this independent idea. It wasn't me. And now you're stuck being the foot soldier for that narcissist, and they're just going to use you to beat other people, using you as the sword, using you as the shield, while they sit back and they pretend that, oh my God, I can't believe all this is happening, while they continue doing this, and you become their little foot soldier. And this is happening prime time, real life, every day today. This whole elections thing is a prime example of that. They have been telegraphing their moves for 4 years, and especially the past 9 months, they've been telling us exactly what they're going to do. Prime time every day. They've been telling us this. But then at the same time they say, well, we're not really saying this. And then what's everybody repeating now? Well, they never said that. They never said that, even though we have, hundreds of hours of footage to prove that this is the way things were going to happen. Anyways, it's incumbent upon you to think for yourself. Get off your ass and find out the real information. Start digging. Find new sources of information other than that flock of birds you're in, and seek another truth, right? I'm not saying that you're going to seek something else and you're going to come up with a different conclusion and change your beliefs, but you may. It's also a very good mental awareness to understand. Once you start doing this, you're also going to see how people continuously manipulate you. You'll see this in social media all the time. You see this on TV all the time. Commercials are highly manipulative. And every bit of social media you find out there, Facebook, Twitter, even YouTube suggested channels, everything is meant to steer you down a path, meant to tell you how to think, meant to tell you what everybody else is thinking, so you get to be part of the club, right? How about you being a part of a different club, the part of the club that's going to be the ones that survive, right? The ones that think for themselves and do for themselves, all right? That's all I've got, boys. Have a great day.